Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. This is Tracy here, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a spiral. So this is crocheted in the spiral, and you can see it goes around and around and around, and we finish up here. So I'm going to show you firstly how we make the spiral, and then how we can either leave it like this or close it off. So this is just a little project. So I'm using some just not scrap yarn, but yarn that I don't have a great deal of, in this lovely little pink shade. It's an inexpensive yarn that I got from where did I get it? I got a feeling it was Pound Stretcher yarn fair Tootsie. So for this project you're going to need a crochet hook, and I've got a tulip 4, because this isn't thick yarn, it is DK. Sorry about the shadowing, but it's quite gloomy today. We've had a little bit of snow even. I'm a bit confused by that because it was sunny one minute and then snowy the next. But we need to make a slip knot, and you can do that however you normally would. So I'm going to do this for a beginner because it is a nice simple little thing to do, and we're going to chain 4. So you yarn over and pull through the loop that's on your hook, and you do that 4 times. So if we were making a circle, we would now join that circle with a slip stitch, but we're not going to do that for this tutorial. We're going to do a treble crochet in there, but we're actually going to do 11 because these chain will count as our first, and we want 12 altogether. So we yarn over and we go into the very first chain, and we yarn over and pull up a loop. So we've got 3 on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So that now in effect is 2 stitches, this one and this. So we're going to do another 10 in the same space. Don't worry if it gets a little bit baggy, that doesn't matter at all. And if I go ahead of you, then just pause me for a sec and catch up. Okay, I think that's 5. Yeah. So don't worry if that hole looks a little bit on the big side. Move that tail out of the way. I think this is my last one. I will count them, I'm sure it is. But if this tail looks, if it looks a little bit on the big side, this hole, it's okay. With our yarn that we've got here, we can close that up just to make sure it's not. But my first one that I did for this didn't become a large hole, but then it is very different yarn. So it might just be, if your yarn is a lot softer, then it will make that hole, but you can always close it up with your tail. So now if we were making a circle, and I did do a beginner's circle, if you haven't seen that already, I will put a link at the end. We would now slip stitch into our top chain and close it, but we're not going to do that. This is our first real stitch, as you can see here, and these are our chains. So in that first chain up the top, we're going to make a treble crochet. So we're going to yarn over, and you can either try and get through these 2 loops like that, or you can just go straight in. It doesn't make any difference. So we're going to make a treble crochet. Okay, so now you're going to need a stitch marker to just put in this stitch that you've just created. I'm going to choose this red one, and I'm just going to insert that, and it's how we keep track of where we're at. Okay, so that's our first one, and what we're going to do is another one in that same stitch. Oh, actually that got a bit baggy where I was I did pull it out, so I'll start that again. Okay, so we've got 2 in that stitch. Now we're going to do 2 in every single one all the way around, and that's exactly the same as we would do if we were making something round, say for a hat or a coaster or whatever we were making for around our first one, all the, you know, first sort of after the initial lot of stitches. Our first increase is 1 in every single stitch around. So that's exactly what we're going to do all the way until we get to our stitch marker. Don't worry if it starts to cup a little bit, it might do that. As long as you're doing the right amount of stitches, it should be fine. Like I said, if I go a bit too quick, then just pause it and catch up with me. Okay, we're nearly there. Oh, I nearly forgot to do my extra one in there, didn't I? Make sure I did. Yeah, I did it in the one before. My mind was wandering. Easily done. Okay, so I've now caught up to my stitch marker. So we're back to the start. Now I'm just going to take that out. Easier said than done. And in that particular stitch there, I'm going to do 1. And then I'm going to pop my stitch marker back in to that stitch that I've just made. It's very soft yarn this, it's like baby yarn, so to try my best not to catch it. Okay, so I've got 1 in that stitch right now. I'm going to put another 1 in, so I'm going to increase. And I need to pull out some yarn, just bear with me a second. Now in the next one, we're going to do 1 on its own. And then we're going to do 2 into the next one. So if we were making a circle, it is the same increases that you would do for the flat circle. So we do 2, then 1 on its own, and then 2 in the next, and 1 on its own. So we are increasing by 12 every time we go around. And that's what we're going to do all the way till we get to our stitch marker. Unless you're doing something with a stitch count, where it has to work out, I didn't pull out enough yarn, then it actually wouldn't matter too much if you had an extra stitch or you lost one somewhere along the line. I know we're all meant to be telling you that it needs to be perfect, but unless you're making something where you have to have a specific stitch count, those little errors are not going to hurt you. But you don't want it. As you can see, it is kind of does cup a little bit. You don't, obviously, if you lose too many stitches, then it's going to kind of ball up like it will cup too much. But certainly the odd one here or one too many, it's not going to hurt the project at all. So we just carry on like that until we get back to the start. I would pause it, but it's not that far. Okay, carry on until we catch up with our marker, which is right there. Okay, we're back to the beginning. Okay, so as you can see, we're spiraling around quite nicely. Let's give it that tail because it does get in the way a little bit. And we've started off and now we're going round and round, as you can see. So this is perfect for things like placemats, coasters, making a little snail. You can do all kinds of things with this. So now we're back to the stitch marker. We pop it out. Incidentally, these scissors and these stitch markers I do have, and the crochet hooks I do have in my shop. If you've not found it, it is hobbyrocks.co.uk. So this is our start, and in that one we're going to do our one on its own, and then we're going to pop the stitch marker back in just so that we know the start and end. So just like if we were making a circle, we carry on with the same kind of increasing. So where we'd had an increase and then one on its own, now we have an increase, then two on their own. And because we started off with an increase in the previous way round, I'm going to start off with the single stitches. So that's the first one of the one on its own. I'm going to do another one on its own in the next one, and then the very next stitch will be the increase. So I will have two in the same stitch, and then we'll go and do two on their own. So one in that stitch, one in the next stitch, and then two into the next stitch. And that's our increase for the whole of this round. So we do two single ones and one that's two in one, like a double in that one. So I'm going to pause it because now it's got a little bit bigger. It will be a little boring for you to watch me just go all the way around. But what we're going to do is one in the next one, one in the next one, two in the next one, 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 two, one, one, two, all the way around until we catch up with our stitch marker. Okay, so I've made it back to the stitch marker and I've finished on my increase. So I'm going to just pop this one out. Now, before I do, if that was big enough for you, if you were making a coaster, then you could end at this point. If it wasn't, and you were making, say, a placemat, pot stand, or anything that's, you know, larger, what you would now do is carry on with the next round. So if I just take this hook out for a second, I'm going to show you at this point how I would end off, so that if that's all you want this tutorial for, you can end at that point. Let's move this. Just get a little bit of yarn out, and I'm going to show you on this one how we end off. So I've made it all the way round. That was my stitch marker. Now, I've seen on some tutorials, they tell you to go back and end off, but that didn't make a perfect round. So this is how I do it. I yarn over and I go into the next stitch and I pull up my loop, and instead of going through two, I go through all three. Then in the next stitch, I put my hook in and I pull up a loop. So that previous stitch is a half treble, a half double in the US. So in the next one, I'm going to do a double crochet, which is a single crochet in the US, but I make sure they're nice and small. And then in the next stitch, I slip stitch. So there we go. And I've ended off, and I can now just, if I wanted to, end that yarn. And as you can see, it's a nice circle, because remember, you would sew this end in, you wouldn't be seeing it, and it would just look like a lovely completed circle, but done in the spiral. And if you choose different yarns, you can get different effects. So if you were carrying on, then we'll get back to this one. Excuse me. We take out our stitch marker, and in this next stitch, we're going to do one for now and put our stitch marker back. Into that one. Okay, so I'm going to, this is going to be my increase this time. So I'm just going to do another one in there. And just as the last round, we had an increase and then two on their own. We're not going to have three on their own. One in that one, one in that one, and one in that one. And then in the next one, we'll have 2. So that is how we're going to go all the way around with our increases this time. 3 single ones on their own. And then 2 in the next one for our increase. And that is exactly the same if you were doing, oopsie, if you were doing a flat circle or at the top of a hat. That is exactly the same. So we're just going to continue like that. 3 single ones on their own. I'm just pulling some yarn out if you wonder what I'm doing. 3 single ones on their own, and then our increase. We'll do another one together. So I've just done my increase. You can see there are 2 in that stitch. So I'm going to do 1 on its own, the next one on its own, and the next one on its own, and then our increase, 2 into the same stitch. Okay, so we're going to carry on like that until we get all the way back to our stitch marker again. Okay, made it all the way back round to the stitch marker again, and I finished without my increases. So then I will go into this one. So I'm going to end the tutorial now, but I'm going to tell you how you continue to grow this. So as you could see, the first one was just 1 in each. The second row was 2 in every stitch. And then we had 2 and 1. Then we had 2 and 2. And then we had 2 and 3. So now we would get 2 in 1 and then 4. And then we'd get 2, then 5. 2, then 6, and that's how you increase every single round. So every single round will increase by 12 stitches exactly, and that's how you grow this. And then once you want to finish, you can either finish it off in a spiral by just ending there and leaving it like that, or you can close it up as I showed you and turn it into a round. So that is how we crochet in the spiral. Hope that's been informative for you, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, as I said, and the notification bell, and check out my other videos. I have a whole playlist full of beginners, left-handed crochet and right-handed crochet tutorials. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye-bye for now.